All right, welcome back. I got a beautiful, delicious one for you today. Italian meatballs. Just unbelievably delicious. And I've got, of course, a couple of secret little ingredients that are going to take this recipe to another level that you just do not want to miss. So hang in there. But the first thing I want to do is that I want to tell you that I like to take my meatballs and I always like to bake them, right? Instead of putting them into a frying pan, which is fine. But I found that baking really does let the fat kind of drip down into the pan instead of into your saute pan, especially if you're going to add sauce on top, then it kind of can get greasy. This way the fat drips onto the sheet pan. So I prefer to bake first and then add to the sauce afterwards. And that's what we're going to be doing today. So that's number one. So I've preheated the oven to 400 degrees, all right? And we are going to bake these for probably about 15 to 20 minutes, okay? Now, in my meatballs, I like to use a combination of ground beef and ground pork. Now this is just 1 pound here. If you don't, this is a combo, comes in a pack like this. Sometimes it's called meatloaf packaging or something like that. Or if you don't have that, just get a half a pound of ground pork, a half a pound of ground beef. If you don't even want to do that, just use straight ground beef if that's what you want. Ground chicken, whatever you want is fine, okay? But today we're using ground pork and ground beef, half and half, 1 pound. All right, so to get started, we're going to go ahead and put this into a bowl like so. And I want to talk to you really quickly about what really makes a great meatball, okay? And I learned this when I was studying under a master chef in Italy, and I remember him telling me this incredible story. And honestly, the star of our show is actually going to be right here. Plain old white bread, right? Trust me on this, all right? And what I've done is I've taken this bread and I've made fresh breadcrumbs, about 2 cups we have here. This is the star of the show. And the reason being is, what the master chef told me was, basically he had 7 brothers and sisters, so it was a family of 8. And he said that his mom, they were, poverty, kind of, not very rich family and lots of kids. You had a pound of meat. What do you do with that? How do you feed everybody? Well, you have to stretch it. And so his mom, like a lot of mothers and grandmothers and, people over in Italy would do, is they'd find ways to stretch it. And what they would do is that they would use not necessarily a filler, but a binder. And they would put leftover bread inside the meat and it would stretch it and it would feed the whole family. What ended up they finding out was that actual bread actually made the meatballs perfecto, moist and delicious. And so I promise you, when you add this to your meatballs, now you have to get fresh white bread and make your own breadcrumbs. Do not get the can, okay, because those are already dried out and it's just going to add just crummy flavor. It's not going to do what this is going to do. So this is huge. Please listen to me. This is the key to a delicious meatball, all right? And I've got a couple other ones we're going to show you. And also, I want to tell you about how we're going to be doing the seasoning. So we've got some salt and pepper that we always use. And I'm going to be using about 3/4 of a tablespoon or maybe 3 teaspoons if you wanted to, okay, in there of kosher salt. And the same with the cracked black pepper. All right. One of the questions I get a lot is, Chef Brian, how do I know if that's enough seasoning? Do I add more? I've already made all my meatballs and I tasted them and they needed more or something. What you can do is once you have put everything together and mixed that all together, all of your seasonings and everything, take a little bit of the meat out, just a little bit, like a little patty like this, and just form it up like that, put it into a saute pan, brown it, okay, taste it, all right? Because what that cooked piece is going to taste like is what your meatball is going to taste like. Okay? Make sense? Okay. So we've got our kosher salt and black pepper. And I don't normally measure things, but I do know that a pound of meat, about 3/4 of a tablespoon or 3 teaspoons of kosher salt and black pepper is perfect. So you can remember that. Now, we're going to go ahead and also add in some thyme. And in this, we're just going to be using teaspoons, about a teaspoon of each. So we've got some dried thyme. I'm going to use some dried oregano. I've got some chili flake, which is optional, but I like just a little bit of heat. And we're going to be using a little bit of garlic paste. 1 teaspoon. And now, this is where I really want to talk to you. One of the secret ingredients. What I have here is nutmeg, but I have the actual whole nutmeg. So let's pull one out here. And this will allow you to keep this into your dry storage forever and ever and ever, because it's not going anywhere, okay? If you were to buy dried nutmeg, as I told you before, eventually after about 6 months, it's gonna turn into sawdust. It's gonna have no flavor, no nothing, okay? Get the whole nut, and you will be able to just last forever. And so what we're gonna do is we're going to take our grater, and we're just going to get about a teaspoon of this nutmeg. And this, my friends, is the game right here. Okay, as you can see, look at that. See it's shaved off? Look at that, okay? And we just put this back into our jar. And again, like I said, this will last you forever. All right, so we've got that. Now, ricotta cheese. We're gonna do 3 tablespoons of ricotta cheese. Okay. 2, 3. Just like so. And we are off and running. Finally, we'll add our breadcrumbs. And I've got a mixture of some fresh basil and some parsley. And I'm just going to add just about a tablespoon in there for that earthy flavor. And now you get your clean hands and you go for it. You can use a spoon, you can use gloves, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to tell you this is what it's all about right here, okay? So get your hands in here, and you just want to get this all mixed in. Smells amazing. So you get everything incorporated, like so. And then we start to make our balls. So when we come back, we will start to form our balls. We want to let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes in room temperature, because you want to get all of those seasonings to come together as one, okay? These were all little layers of flavor, and now we're gonna bring them all together as one. So we'll just let this sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. When we come back, we'll start to roll out our balls. We'll place them on our sheet pan, and in the oven they'll go, and then we'll get on to the next step. Don't go anywhere, be right back. All right, so come on in here. You can see it's been sitting for about 10 to 15 minutes. Nice, all the flavors are starting to come in together before me one. And this pound will probably make about 12 balls. I like mine fairly large. So you just grab it like this. I've got a sheet pan. I've put a little bit of Pam spray, or you can use extra virgin olive oil or something, just a little bit. I like to just make sure these probably would not stick with, you know, if you didn't have that, but I like to put a little bit of oil down on the pan. And we're just going to get these all going. Like so. And one of the things that I also want to press upon you is it really is important to feel and use your hands. They are an extension, they are tools. And you basically just want to get the palm here, okay, and then a palm, and then just like so, and get a nice ball, just like that. And I remember when I was over in Italy, they also used to bake their meatballs too. And that is when I really learned all of the techniques of cooking, really. I mean, there's so many different, it's all about time and temperature, right? But what type of cooking are you using? Are you baking? Are you broiling? Are you sauteing? Are you steaming? Are you grilling? All these different things. And like the nutmeg, you know, the whole nutmeg versus powdered nutmeg, and all these little tips and tricks are the fundamentals of cooking, right? These are the foundations. Once you learn the foundations, you can go as far and as high and become the most amazing cook in the world once you understand the basics. And I teach all that in my ebook, okay, which there's a link in the description box below. You should pick one up. It'll teach you all the basic fundamentals. It's not a cookbook. It's actually a book that's going to really teach you all about everything from seasonings to food storage to sanitation to all the cooking different methods. It's really fantastic. All right. So when we come back, we will finish all of these. Like I said, we've got what, 8 now. We're probably going to have, just like I said, probably about a dozen, maybe 14. And then we will pop them in the oven and continue on. Stay right there. I'll be right back. All right, so come on in here. Like I said, we have 13 here, so a baker's dozen, so it's perfect. And like you said, I like mine, like I said, fairly large. All right, you could make it a lot smaller if you want, but I like the larger because it's just going to I don't know, just a little more hearty, you know? I just like that nice. So anyway, so you can see, and they hold together really, really nice, right? That's the breadcrumbs are holding that together nicely. So in the oven we go. The oven is ready to go. It's 400 degrees. We're going to put these in for 15 to 20 minutes. Keep your eye on them. They're going to get nice and brown. And we pull them out and we'll go on to our next step. Be right back. All right, so the meatballs are in the oven. All right, they've got about another 15 minutes to go. In the meantime, we're going to make a basic tomato sauce, right? Nothing fancy. You want basic here. Too many times people think, oh, the more the merrier, the more the merrier. In fact, that's something I had to learn myself, right? Americans really do think that more is better, right? If I have, all ground beef and no breadcrumbs at all, yeah, you can make a meatball, but it's going to be dense and not good, right? So by adding that white breadcrumb, it really does add a whole nother layer of flavor, and it makes them nice and moist, and that's what we want. The same is for a tomato sauce. You can go to the store, you could buy a marinara sauce, you could buy a tomato basil sauce, that's fine. But just make sure, turn on the side of the bottle and make sure the first ingredient doesn't say sugar, doesn't say, whatever, right? You want it to be as pure as possible because you do not want the sauce to take away from the actual protein itself, which in this case is the meatball. So, so important. So today we're going to be using San Marzano tomato, okay, and these are crushed San Marzano, and this is the undisputed tomato of Italy for sure. And then I also have some tomato regular sauce. Again, nothing inside of this at all, just pure. Okay, I'm going to turn the heat on, and we'll keep this down to about a simmer. And all we're going to add to this is some kosher salt and black pepper and some herbs, and that's it. And what you want to do here is you just want to let this do its thing. The meatballs are doing their thing. This beautiful sauce is going to start doing its thing. And of course, we'll let this go for a little bit, and we'll taste this too once this comes up, and adjust for seasonings as we always do. If you really wanted to, I would not have a problem with adding, a little bit of garlic to this if you wanted to, or even some nutmeg to this would be also fine if you wanted to. Since the meatballs are going to be going inside of this sauce, that's fine. If I was making just a basic tomato sauce just to have in the house on the side, put it in the fridge, or make a bunch and freeze it, make it very, very simple, okay? That way you're not going to overpower anything that you combine the sauce with, if that makes sense, okay? So we're just gonna let this come up, and it's just, you can see, it's just so basic and so beautiful. And that's what you want, simplicity. We're all about simple here at Chef Brian's Kitchen, okay? So again, we'll give this 5-10 minutes, okay? We'll let this come together. Let the tomatoes start to do their thing, all right? And we'll taste it. We'll see if we need to add a little bit more seasoning. And then we'll grab and check our meatballs. We'll bring those out. and then we'll go from there, and we are in for some delicious, beautiful Italian meatballs. Stay right there. All right, welcome back. Look at what we've got here. Oh my goodness. Woo, baby. Those look unbelievable. Wow. And they smell incredible. And we've got our sauce here. Very, very simple. And we want to taste this too before we continue on. So good. So just, I love a good tomato. And that's the key. If you have a tomato sauce, you want to taste the tomato, right? It's really, really good. All right, so let's take our meatballs. I'm just gonna drop them in here like so. Oh my goodness. Just gonna submerge them. Now, of course, at this point, you could serve these, as I always like to do, by themselves. Maybe some crusty bread. Or, of course, go ahead and cook some pasta. You know, any kind of pasta, spaghetti, fettuccine, rigatoni, macaroni, ziti, whatever you want, and then add that, not necessarily to the sauce, but on the side, and then just layer these on top, because the star of the show really is these meatballs, I promise you. So here's the deal. I want these to submerge, as they've been submerged, I want these to now become one with the sauce, okay? I think everybody's getting my whole concept of what I believe is the real true essence of really, really good cooking. And that is to time and temperature with ingredients, okay, but allowing the ingredients to hold their own, but then come together as one to form a family. So we've got the meatballs, which has tremendous amounts of layers of flavor, okay? And now it's in this beautiful, simple tomato sauce, San Marzano tomato, and now we want to let these go for about 10 minutes so they become one with the sauce. All right, if we were just to put these on a plate by themselves and put the sauce right on top, you'd have two different things going on, right? And your palate would be fine, but it wouldn't really. This way, by letting them submerge the way they are, they're becoming one. So every bite is going to have beautiful essence of that tomato sauce plus all of the beautiful stuff inside the meatball, and that's what makes cooking amazing when it's done right. We'll be right back. We'll let these go for a couple minutes. I'll see you in a minute. All right, come on in here. Let's take this top off. You can see these have had time to get submerged. Oh my goodness. Okay, now let's take some to the plate here. Oh man, oh man. This is spectacular. All right, now we'll take some of that sauce, a little housekeeping here, and we'll take some of the sauce, I'm just going to ladle on top, like so. Now we've got this extra herbs, Sprinkle on top like that. Again, we had some fresh herbs and dry herbs, and then at the last minute I'm putting dry on top. Another earthy layer of flavor, non-cooked, which is going to be felt in your palate as well, which adds great chemistry to cooking. And then we'll even take some more regular fresh basil. Just tear on top like that. Nothing precise. Cooking shouldn't be perfect. Needs to be. And then I've got some Parmesan Reggiano. Some people will say this is the undisputed king of cheeses, and I would have to agree. And we just take our grater, like so. And tell me you are not living in Italy right now. Wow. All right. Little housekeeping, and then clean up. Get a nice, and there ain't nothing to it but to do it, right? Let's give it a taste. Come on in here with me. What we got here? Oh, here's one. Look at this one right here. This one. I want you to see. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Look at that. Wow. You just don't know. You just don't know. But you will when you get your hands on this. Oh my gosh. Wow. I'm going back for one more. Unbelievable. All of that flavor, that nutmeg, and then again, like I said, the basic white breadcrumbs, and then the ricotta cheese, of course. Oh my goodness. This is so amazing. Wow. Unreal. Really. Unbelievable. I cannot wait until you try these simple, basic Italian meatballs. You will never go back to anything else you've ever tried before. These are so authentic and so amazing and so delicious. You will absolutely love them. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. I can't wait to see you next week on the next episode of Chef Brian's Kitchen. I am Chef Brian. And remember, as always, eat well and stay healthy.